Aloha, thank you for coming to my lore video. I'd like to talk to you about my world of Enzebel, the campaign setting it's based on, and how it's kind of formed into a lot of my books. So first is Enzebel. What is it? Well, the Ultima War was decided in a single moment. One decisively struck attack, leaving all the gods frozen in their final repose, still clutching their relics and weapons and wounds, while existence in all its myriad multitudes and all of creation, all of oblivion, all the liminal spaces between, they were all used up, consumed to construct the gods incarnates that they did the final war in. And there's no climax, there's no intrigue, no betrayal, no quarter. It's just aeons of preparations, kalpas of determination, and then it just ends in one big preordained moment. And it's so quick that the mortals that were fighting alongside the gods, they didn't actually realize that it was over before they, like the gods that are littering the environment everywhere, were fossilized into inert stone. And so this is a post-space world. There's no outer space. Everything is full of these giant statues. Like, imagine if the space between Earth and the sun, all that empty space, it's actually full of just giant monster statues that are all locked in their final battles. And all the planets of the universe that were not within a sealed world, they all got used up as well. And there's only like a handful of these sealed worlds that are still sealed, and there's a lot more that were unsealed, and now the inhabitants have to live and deal with all the threats of this very strange world of all these statues, or the idola, as I call them, the idola. And so everybody that was rallied to fight, basically they're also statues, and so you have like seas of soldiers all running. I like to think of, like, imagine a Wargamers board if it was just on a universal scale. Just layers of warriors fighting, and of every type of army and monster and hero, and you have statues that are giants. Like, you could just see the shin, and that's all the foot lands, and it's just a foot, and it goes up into this ever darkness. And when you go too far from the statues, you hit what's called the everfall, and instead of kind of gravity pulling you down, you actually just get stuck in the sky. And so there's these bone islands of people. Like, if you threw somebody really high up, they would just get stuck because there's no up or down, or gravity doesn't really work the way it used to. Instead, it's very relative to your perception. If with your will, you can kind of make yourself float upwards and downwards if you are like a powerful kind of magic user. But everybody else, it's kind of like wherever your feet are pointing, that's down, and your head is pointing, that's up. And so you'll have people that are like walking along, and it's like, oh, hey, oh, you're from topside, and like, oh, how can we align ourselves? And so it's kind of funny, some of the situations that can arise. So the world outside of it is very chaotic, but also very orderly, because it's a chaotic tumult of all these warriors and their final death poses, but also there's not a lot of entropy happening at all, really. There is some, but I don't want to spoil too much for anyone who's going to actually go through the campaign setting, or somebody who hasn't read too much of the books. And so after the Ultima War, nobody knows like who won either, because it's last war of the gods. Like, it's the campaign setting is a lot of cosmic horror, high strangeness, lots of terror and delight, wonders and horrors, and occult mysteries, eldritch technology, and weird civilizations with very unique races. I've got lots of interesting monster races that maybe might be a bit unique if you were looking for some strange things for your campaign setting table, or your D&D groups, or whatever you're playing nowadays, GURPS, or I don't know what's popular. I haven't played tabletop for probably, I think, like a decade now. So I think I heard D&D wasn't really popular anymore. because of some of the controversies around them. So whatever you're playing, this could fit in it because it's system agnostic. So, but yeah, that's pieces of it. You also physics and the laws of physics and stuff are broken. The world of Enzebel. That's just everything that's left over. This giant tomb statuary, tomb of statues of these gods. There's terrible monsters. There's tyrants. There's cults. There's also the zodiac beasts, which are like these kind of godling monsters, like beasts or of legend that have found like stars and harnessed them so that they're immortal. And so there's places where there are stars outside of the sealed worlds, but they're always tied to one of the zodiac beasts. And the problem is some of the zodiac beasts are great to live under. Like there's the zodiac beast of the rabbit, and it's like, oh, there's just a rabbit somewhere in the realm that the star is attached to, and nobody can kill that rabbit. And so it's like, oh, like rabbits, you're forbidden from killing them in this one place. And so there's just tons of rabbits everywhere. And then there's other ones where it's like, oh, the zodiac beast is actually a terrible monster. And, people are like, oh, well, like we want you to kill it because then we could maybe try to attach the star to something else if we can try to control it. But even the stars, like, they're so diminished because of the hungry dark in the setting. So hungry dark is different than your regular darkness that you're used to. It doesn't flee when light. It actually absorbs light and energy, and then it will harden into like a crust, and then you can break it off, and you can see like light can enter where it was, but it's like almost like an oil that you have to like burn out. So it doesn't function whatever. And also the hungry dark, if you're going into it, like you can still walk through hungry dark, like but it'll dissolve off your skin because it eats the energy that you have. So your skin has energy. So if you walk into it really quickly, you become one of the skinless men that are like these really creepy, like imagine anatomical dummies covered in that are bleeding that have forgotten how to die, because one of the things with hungry dark is that it can also like make you go crazy in a way that your craziness is real. So if you're one of these Hayakukis, I think that's how it's pronounced. It's the skinless men. I tried to look up the Japanese and try to spell it because I wanted to base it off the ant-walking alligator people from the atomic bombs, where they had no skin and they're walking blindly. And that's just the most scary thing I'd heard, was these accounts of these lines of people. And that's what the Hayakuki do. They wander through the vast, hands upon their shoulders, attacking anything and dragging them into the hungry dark, skinning them, and then you join the line. So it's like they're really like zombie apocalypse conga line, but pretty horrifying. So that's the Hayakuki and the hungry dark. The hungry dark also is why you don't find really stars. Like I said, like any star that would be out, that's why like they're still out there. They still give heat, but the gravity, they just don't have enough mass for the gravity because of the hungry dark. Because after the end of the Ultima War, and another piece is like this isn't meant to be a depressing setting. It's that even the gods, all these like there's also these are small g gods. I do wanted to define that. These are small g gods. They're idols, technically speaking, because they're all created objects. They're not worthy of worship. But they were very, very powerful, yeah, mind you. However, they are not, the supreme high capital G God. They're, petrified idols. And so that's all these petrified gods and their armies, they're called the Idola. And it's this giant pantheon of all these gods of every type of, variation, but they're all nameless, and they don't have any power themselves. They're inert stone statues. And there is some like interesting things, like there is a type of a metal an alloy that sometimes can be found that is called gigant, and they're all positioned upon these giant planes and pillars. There's like pillars, and then there's planes of black basalt, white basalt, and there's like matte. Some of it's different colors. So you have like, just like stone, basalt, giant planes of it, pillars of it. You think of Trajan's pillar. That's what some of these pillars would look like, and it's just like everything's just frozen in that final moment. And humans, we can't, like mortals, we can't seem to chip or destroy them. So you have to kind of just navigate this forest of statues, and the areas that have been kind of like, let's say there's a sealed world and there's some crystal mountains, and they've broken out, and they're planets. Like the problem is, as soon as you're like, the only things that have survived the Ultima world Ultima War were inside these sealed worlds. And so I described one with the Klein bottle world. There's others that are like an astro lab. There's another one that's like being pushed around by a giant beetle, like on a dung, like the dung beetle does. And like that's kind of like, it's all kind of like each, like, how there's like those mythologies of like what the universe is, and the Egyptians like, the universe is in a valley, and there's a carpet on the sky, and the holes are poked in it. We can't climb up the walls of the valley, and that's just what the world is. I tried to base each sealed world on kind of like that, an internally consistent world. And so our world is the Athkayit Lake. We're just a series of islands on lakes on islands on lakes, and where some of them are separated by glacier walls, and some are volcanic fields, and each one is kind of separated from the next. And there's some islands that are very powerful, that are kind of like they try to convince islands, oh yeah, there's nothing else out there, because it causes problems, because then people want to go sun chasing. And so each day, this new sun comes out the neck of the Klein bottle shaped world and flies up this corridor. And like when you're looking up at the sky, you're actually seeing the other side of the island, and the stars are the lights of these other cities and islands and worlds. And so it's a very like jarring, weird take on like the world is really not what you thought it was. And that's the Klein bottle shaped world. And there's other ones, like I said, like the Astrolab ones, the fantasy books I do. There are a lot of them are in the Astrolab ones, because it's all these like these orbs that are being spun upon these axes. And if you went actually to the poles, you actually get like you would find like this pillar of like ice that goes down into the clockwork of the this Astrolab that is like functioning. And so when you the thing is, when you unseal a sealed world, the rules that were functioning by it cease to be. It's the same as like if you go to Mobile Cave and you break through that barrier and bring in all the atmosphere of the outside world, it actually disrupts and destroys the life in the world the way it was functioning, right? And that's that cave where Mobile Cave, I don't know if you know it, but it has chemosynthetic life instead of photosynthetic, because it's underground. And anybody who's talked to me in person knows that, like, I don't think we came from a pool on the ground. It's like I think life actually started within the Earth's crust, and eventually it burst out later, amongst other things, I think. But that's I'll leave that for my books to kind of showcase some of that. But anyways, so the Idola are these giant formations of these petrified gods and their armies. And some places, if people have been living there for a while, there's enough dirt and topsoil and dead stuff that piles up that you have like kind of like cover upon them, and the gods, the Idola, become just the bedrock. And so you'll have like just a head poking out of a field of like just regular grass. It looks like just any other place. And like I said, you have the zodiac beasts that kind of, you do have some stars, but they're always like, it's a double-edged sword. So like the rabbit star, it's like, imagine like the star of your world is tied to a rabbit that's running around frantically somewhere. And so the star moves around chaotic and frantic as a rabbit, and then there's other ones where it's tied to like some mortal that is maybe not so good, and they're getting people to worship them as like a god, because like, hey, I'm the god of the sun, you want light and heat, sacrifice to me or I'll smite you. And so you do have some pretty nasty characters that do that. That's the Idola, and then you have the like all the wilderness. I call it, in all my books, I call it the vast, and it's just it's nice, it's short, and it gives you an idea of what you're looking at. It's just like endless, trackless, cyclopeanly sized hexagonal plates, and also all the bottom, like it's everything's a hexagonal shaped kind of islands of land, right? So you have the gods that are all kind of petrified, but they're all positioned on these giant hexagonally shaped, like imagine a giant wargaming table. If it got turned mythologized, that's kind of what you're looking at. You giant hexagonal plates, planes and pillars, and you're going down one and you find another, and then there's more and more and always more in every direction. You can just wander up and climb down, or you can sail through the skies on airships or fly on the backs of eagles, or there's also teleportation magic that the moon wizards know, so that's kind of cool too. But anyways, next you have the Crystal Mountains. Now, all the stars are, like I said, are kind of hidden away in the setting because the Hungry Dark kind of consumes them. And what the Hungry Dark does to a star is it also reduces its mass. So like all the stars that, let's say, like a zodiac beast has above its head, yeah, it's still exhibiting the same amount of like energy and what have you, but it's just been condensed because of how Hungry Dark interacts with these, like a star. It's kind of like weird. It like compresses it because Hungry Dark doesn't retreat with light, as I mentioned. So you have most of the light, like 99% of the light, is coming from Crystal Mountains in the setting, because the stars are very rare. Like if you have a rabbit, you just have the one star following it, right? But most of the light's coming from these giant crystal mountains that are bursting out of the Idola, and they're called the Koman, which is, of course, sun pillar and there are these sun pillars, and inside of them you can see these glowing, very faintly glowing words. But when you take, a mountain of them, it shines bright as the sun. And they also give off like heat and light, and the crystals, like the words within them. If you're a wizard, you can break open the crystals, take the words out, and if you learn them, using a shortwave radio to tune into the vibrations of the crystal, you can learn to speak it. If you're an adept at using the magic of the magic radios I have in it. And so when you learn the speech of it, you can cast the spells. But again, like the magic in my world, I like to have it be like, it's like a dog painting with color, like giving a dog color paints. We can't perceive the mechanism, but we can perceive the action. So it's like, oh, I think that's how this works. Or like, oh, this is like a big heavy object that's yellow. I'm going to use it as a hammer. It's like, oh, that's a Geiger counter actually, but it's cool you use it as a hammer. So that's the idea with those faces. You have the Crystal Mountains anyway. So the Crystal Mountains, there's like these giant pillars of like crystal, and they're all coming up like those the hexagonal steps of basalt that you see. And it just like you can tell, I like hexagons as a design, because then it all fits together. Also, because it's I based it off of like my wargaming setting I made for ages ago, but I had to censor a lot of it and change a lot of it. A lot of people were like, oh, I don't like you using this thing or that. And back then I was new. You're a new DM, you get a whole bunch of feedback, you do play testing, people tell you hate it, so you try to make it be something people would like. And now I'm doing my re-release of the campaign setting. It's going very slow, as you guys could tell, but I kind of am like, well, you know what? Screw it. Like if people hate it, well, they're gonna hate it. and I'm not going to try and make it dulled down. Like the original one I released like a decade ago, it was like, oh, well, I guess I have to make them more like elves, and I have to make these more like dwarves because people want dwarves and people like elves. And, I basically, at the end of it, I didn't have very much of my own original stuff because it was like when I did the play testing, I just kind of got hammered by it. Which I guess, pro tip, if you're developing your own thing, don't listen to your playtesters all the time. Take their advice, but remember, it's your creation. And so now I'm I've been writing about it, and people were kind of interested, about the lore of the worlds I write about. And I'm like, well, it's all based off of like the campaigns I used to run. And so I had friends that had played through a lot of the campaigns. Like one of them it was on the back of one of the space turtles, and there's only one star left, and the rest of the universe is dark. And it was like kind of like they're kind of trying to find a way to revive the dying space turtle. And then there's another campaign where it's like, oh, this is like after the end and the stars have all gone out, and they're kind of exist inside this like really, really grim dark, like everybody's just trying to conserve fuel and live as long as possible because they don't know what happened to all the stars. And then I have a bunch of fantasy settings that I did, and so this one, hopefully you're going to like it when it comes out, and if not, well, I don't care, because I've been writing for long enough that you realize you can't really care what other people think about what you make. So that's the common, anyways, the Crystal Mountains, where all the light is coming from, and the magic is from the words in it. So you can learn the magic as a word, or if you don't have the speech to do it, or the power to do it, because like magic, it's like painting. Like you can practice and learn it, but some of it is just like you either got it or you don't. And some of it is actually how a person's mind works. So there's people that can imagine things in their head, and they have a certain type of power to their type of magic. Then there's people with blank minds, like the aphantasia, they can't visualize it, so they actually have pure creative power, because if you tell them something that they can't imagine in their mind, but because they have an empty mind, they can have anything come out of their mind, right? So there's kind of different things. Then there's the dark minds, where when they visualize things, the colors are inverted. So if you say, oh, imagine an apple, they would close their eyes and imagine like an apple, but the apple is like green colored and the background is black. Where for the bright minds, they have a white background and a red apple. The aphantasia minds, they don't have anything they could imagine, and when you tell them, like they don't imagine anything. And then there's the ones that have dark sight, and so when they close their eyes, they see like this. They see with the third eye inside their head, the pituitary gland. That's like in a lot of animals, it's actually located near the surface of the skull because it's a light sensor. But for us, because it's located within the middle of the head, it's actually able to kind of observe the mindscape, as it were. But I'll get into the El Charinga, or the mindscape, dreamtime, whatever you want to call it, in another video. Anyways, so with the Crystal Mountains, like I said, you can learn magic from the radio by tuning into the vibrations of the words. You can also take the words and use them like a scroll. Like instead of that, though, it's everybody uses like crystal, like bronze, like clockwork pistols that tap the words and make it shoot whatever word you've written into it. So it's like you'd write like a wand would be like a big kind of like a revolver that would say like fireball, and you'd click the thing and the hammer would hit it, and it would say it in like this vibrating kind of tuner, like a tuning fork is kind of like the barrel, and that's how you shoot the wands in this the setting. And with these the tuning fork kind of wands, the thing is eventually your word will break, right? So you fire it however many times, and eventually the crystal cracks. And sometimes you need to replace the whole word. Sometimes it's just a letter. And also, if you can spell like if you just imagine if you took a magazine and cut it up into the individual letters, you can spell a lot of words, but the more they might not fit on the edges, and that's why the moon wizards have a very good kind of business going on that they file and fit them together. But if you can try to do it on yourself, but you might blow yourself up too. So that's kind of some of the magic is coming from that. There's also different types of magic. There's like I said, there's different types of minds. And so like if you have like a bright mind where you've just visualized things, you are mostly going to be using like you have to go learn it and read it. A blank mind, the empty mind, they can kind of make their own magic. And the dark mind ones, same thing with but a lot of the spells they learn, the magic's going to be different or cursed kind of, or like inverted. And so the bright mind is going to function as intended. And then, yeah, but anyways, I don't want to give away too much, but there's the other minds, well, I guess you'll find out. So anyways, that's the Coleman, these giant pillars of crystal, and they shine. And some people try to destroy them because it's like, oh, like this is the source of magic which causes so much death and destruction. We need to destroy them. Some people use them as fuel. Some people protect them, worship them. So it's at the heart of each of these mountains. There's like this kind of Icarus congealment that's in the shape of like a sleeping god. And it's like kind of like the source of the power of it. And so some people like they mine down to get it because it's kind of like the Arkenstone. The Arkenstone is like the gem of gems. At the bottom of these crystal mountains, there's like kind of like a gem of gems, like the ultimate canon. And so the thing is also all the words that are written. It's a religious canon written about one of these gods a lot of the times, and it's like, oh, the god that it burst from, these are all the powers that it had, and these are all the tales of it. And so you're thinking about like, okay, so when you find one of these mountains, it's all the remnants, the story of whatever stone statue, petrified god had burst into it. Nobody knows how to go from a mundane statue to the bursted the mountain of light, the Idola to the mountain of light. Like nobody's figured that part out, and so that's another mystery that people kind of go into. Next, you have the magnetic moons in the setting, and there's no stars in the skies, but it's not empty. You have these magnetic moons that kind of move through the night, and they're governed by the moon wizards. And they bring rain, and they emanate magnetic fields, and so you kind of get some of they can restore kind of order in some ways. It's like a semblance of, oh, like the moon is coming, so here comes the rain, and here comes the electromagnetic fields, and they charge the blaster pistols, the tuning fork pistols, right? And also between each of the magnetic moons, you have what's called the aurora tenebrae. And it's like the aurora borealis, but since it's not boreal, it's tenebrae. It's the terrible ribbons of light that dance between each moon. And so you can actually figure out where another moon is by following the strands, which is good and bad, because it's like on a good side, it's like, oh, like we can find our way to new lands, but the tracers work both ways, and sometimes people, like the invaders, come to following these strands. So it's both terrible and wonderful, hence the name. So the magnetic moons, there's a bit different types of them. There's iron ones, there's cobalt ones, there's iron ones, steel ones, stainless steel. What else is there? There's nickel ones as well. They're all magnetic metals, as you probably noticed. And then there's cannibal moons, which are like when they're off in the dark away from the crystal mountains, they actually are super magnetic, and they'll just like rip a person off the ground and just abduct them into the sky. But as soon as they get near the crystal mountains, then all their magnetism goes away, and it just is a littering of dead corpses and every piece of metal it's ever stolen. So there's all kinds of stuff like that. And then there's like I said, there's no empty space, but there isn't. You have these great abyssal antrums, these gulfs of silence amid the Idola within Enzebel, and there's like just like an empty expanse that just goes on as like you can't see the other side, and it's just so empty. And there's kind of where some of the cosmic horrors and monsters kind of lurk, and also it's a lot where the Hungry Dark is, because the Hungry Dark again, it could be an inch thick or a billion meters thick, and you wouldn't know until you go through it. And that's sometimes at the bottom of those giant pits. Anyways, so the aura tenebrae, like I said, they act as these ribbons between the stars. You also have like these glass seas where it's it's like a great. I wish I could draw this out for you, look a bit better. But imagine like a ocean made of glass that's moving in slow motion, and each kind of swirl and wave takes hours to resolve, but it's like alive kind of, and so it's like made of this like kind of wild glass. And then of course you like I said, you have like the sealed worlds, which I'll get to in a bit. But within the vast, you have also sometimes within the, like, you'll find like a god, these petrified gods within the idol, and its mouth will be open, and you can go inside, and there's like, that's a mouth of madness. And there's also like sometimes people will like go exploring them, and there's all kinds of hazards within them. And then you also have my relict biomes. These are like the relics of the old world, the realms of balance before the end Ultima War kind of upset everything. And those are kind of like, they're very similar to our worlds. And so it's all about like, how much water is there, how much light is there, and what kind of environment is it kind of around it. And that's kind of a lot of it's just based on the amount of biomass, like, so how much soil there is, how much heat and how much moisture. And so that ranges the whole gamut of Earth. So if you want to know that, you just kind of look outside and what kind of environments are available here, and you can find those kind of in little pockets around the Crystal Mountains and beneath the magnetic moons. But a lot of the vast and Enzebel is very, very alien. Like you have the Zargoan biomes, where it's this, like the body of the great cosmic serpent, and it's like rotting, but it's also eating itself. So you have like just giant hunks of this giant chopped up serpent that fell during the last battle, still twitching, still wriggling along. And it has all the parasites and stuff that you'd expect from a colossal cosmic serpent that eats stars, but it's been chopped up, and it's now just wriggles around and has all its horrible little parasites and cultists that worship it going with it. And then you have the roving wilds, and these are the zodiac beasts. Don't just have the star, they also project a biome around them. And so the biome spreads wherever the zodiac beast roams. And so if you grab that rabbit and carried it with you, you could, have like a beautiful hoppy rabbit meadow follow you wherever you go. So, and some of them aren't very good. Some of these the zodiac beasts are quite horrible. So people try to kill them, but they're very durable, and usually you're going to need like a special weapon, like a Vorpal blade or whatever. And then you have the stars, and like I said, stars are very rare. There's a lot of the stars are mock stars, or Atara, it's a mythical crystal that caged stars within it. Each facet contains a star, and each facet allows you to channel a certain power. But a lot of them, they just end up getting used for light because people can't figure out how to make them work. So that's the stars. And then true stars are just these like just as big as ours, but they can't actually break through the Idola, even though it's a star and it's just giant in power. The Idola, just like the Hungry Dark, the contact with the star, it actually drains the mass and power of it, and reduces it the more it touches the Idola. And a lot of times, it's like the bodies that are all frozen, they start thrashing around when they have contact with it because of the energy in it. Because gods, again, they're you know, what is dead that cannot die, or that is not dead which cannot die. Next, you have the Spherica Barbarica, or the sealed worlds, where it's each one it's kind of governed by its own laws, and it's separated from everything that happened in Enzebel outside. And so whenever people find a sealed world, it's like, okay, we get this thing, we can open it, and yeah, there's a star in there, and there's gonna be a lot of really cool new stuff, but there's also gonna be some terrible stuff. So you think about like Discover the New World. Yeah, you know, the Spaniards, they brought smallpox and gunpowder. So you get smallpox with your gunpowder. You know, yeah, gunpowder is sweet. We can make firearms. Oh, great, smallpox. Everybody's dying. And so in the same way, it goes both ways, though. You know, so you know, if you bust it open and you're expecting, oh, this might be an easy cakewalk, you might be busting open a hornet's nest world, and that's the Kivati. What happened with their world, like this evil, the Kiverni. They're like these, imagine a parrot beak with tentacles, and a sea urchin growing out of a sea urchin, and they just like to stick things on their sea urchin spines and drain the sensation and pain from them, and they're really horrible invaders. But what happens is they bust open the Kivati sealed world, and the Kivati are like, oh, I love sushi. And so they eat all the Kivati as like, they're like, oh, you came here to like eat us? Well, we're going to eat you. So that's kind of, you know, some of it. It's kind of, you can have some fun with it. And also the idea with Spherica Barbarica was so that if you're running a different world, if you play D&D, Forgotten Realms, or GURPS, or whatever it is, you're able to, you can run whatever world you want. So don't worry about, you know, it's system agnostic. I stopped playing like D&D, the newer stuff that was coming out probably a decade ago. I've stuck with 3rd edition. I use Pathfinder a bit. I use what else do I use? I have some GURPS. I mean, I've shown you a bunch of the books I use. So that's the idea of Spherica. It was just so that anybody, like, that way if you want elves, you can run elves. I mean, I'm not going to have elves in my book for the campaign settings just because, you know, they're overdone. I do have the thing that my friends told me, stop calling these things elves. That makes me uncomfortable. Same with the thing that's stop calling these things dwarves. Anybody who bought my original Wargaming manual however many years ago knows all about those. So yeah, you have those. The sealed worlds, like I said, though, they're all within these lapis lazuli domes, and so it's like if you're inside it and you're in the know, then you tell everybody, oh yeah, there's a bigger universe out there. We can't mention anybody that we're actually trapped inside of this lapis lazuli dome and we can't get out, and that the greater universe out there, you know, however we get out of this thing, we haven't figured out yet. And so that's kind of a big piece of the lore of the worlds. There's also a lot of like really weird relics and stuff. Like the Zocheleths determine like gravity for an area. So like you have areas where like the cornerstone, the Zocheleth, is like it's determining all the realms of their reality, kind of. So it's like the cornerstone of like in a sealed world, the stuff that determines those laws. You can create a limited zone of like out from that right angle of a cornerstone that's like an L. Out from that, you can project a certain type of reality. And then I have my big races. I mean, anybody's read my books, they know I have my affection for the Lilum. Those are Homo Magnus. They're like the oh dear. Ooh. The Homo Magnus. They are the sons and daughters of Lilith and her 9 sister wives. And they were raised as slaves, and they rose up and they broke free, and now they still endure, you know, even after, you know, what should have been the end of days for so many others. Then I have my Tchaikovi. Those are the what do you call them? Oh dear. They're mutants, I guess you'd call them, or ginkgos if you want to be offensive, and maybe get your teeth knocked out. And those ones are they're like, in all kinds of different variations. They have extra limbs and scales, and instead of being like, oh, like there's this type of people, it's like, yeah, you know what, like, if you want to have somebody that's like looks weird, like a mix of a bunch of creatures or something, then you just use those kind of things. So that's the Chayakovi. They're like mutants. Then you have the Ocho, which are the kind of they're like monster bred horrors, and they have like these horns and tentacles for hair, and they've got green, yellow eyes with the kind of the slitted things, or they have tiger kind of brindled stripes. And they have like between 1 and 6 eyes usually, and some of them are like really like buff dudes, and other ones are like these really beautiful women, and so they're all from the Sargoyan, those biomes that are kind of wandering the bits. They were like the armies of this colossal dragon that's still not dead. And some reason it didn't get petrified, neither did they. And they're just like wandering so a lot of them are kind of like your bad guys, like kind of like when you think of like Tolkien had like his orcs. The Ocho are kind of like these like super buff warrior race dudes, and they're just really tough and really mean, and you don't want to get in a fight with them. And then you have the Vrag, which they're like this very weird race that are all born from eggs, and like imagine a bunch of gym jocks with knives on their head that fight to determine who gets to breed each year. So that they're like therianthropes or therotokian critters, and the thing is, the egg, how it gets sung to determines the type of what kind of Vrag comes out of it. And so with the Vrag, you have different kind of strains. You've got the Amanaki, which are like these bestial, like ram, and they have deer horns, and all of them look like people, but they have just like kind of horns and like long ears, kind of like the deedlit ears. And their bodies are a bit different though. Like some of them have hooves, some of them have like birds' feet. No two Vrag look the same. And they're all, the thing is, they're all being hunted by their god called Vrakir, and it's trying to hunt them down and eat them all after the end. So it was, for whatever reason, it didn't die during the end of days, and it's basically just this marauding, horrific kind of like how Kronos hunts down and eats his kids in mythology. That's kind of like the Vrag's god. Vrakir hunts them and tries to eat them all. Then you have the Aesva. They are like, I called them elves originally. My friends were like, please stop calling these things elves, and the playtesters hated it too. But it was basically, they're all monosexual. It's an all-female race, and they reproduce asexually, and each one just makes a copy of itself. And trains that copy to do something that it needs. And so you have just levels of this matriarchy going up to the primal one, who is like, I need somebody to be a physicist. So she raised a copy of herself to be a physicist. And they're kind of very, very strange, very weird. That's the Aesva. And there's different kind of factions. You have the Cyressen and the Aesva and all that kind of stuff. But you'll get more of that if you get the book. Then you have the Yandari, and so the Yandari, there's kind of two different types. There's one is like they have like three eyes. They float, and they're like the masters. And then there's like the slave race ones too, and they have like a tapir's face. But both of them have a kind of a tapir's face. But the ones that float above are obviously the ascended masters, and the other ones are kind of like their little grunts, in the same vein as you have like bees in a hive, right? Like there's like the drones. Then you have the Eluptians, that are like these weird crystal flute playing, noseless. They have like the little antennas with the billabong eyes on them, and they're all about cyborg implantation. They're really weird. Then you have the Unkai, which are like I guess you'd call them apes from hell. Unga Bunga, kind of like really buff apes from hell. Then you have the Kivoti or Kivun. Those are the moth folk that ate they're the ones that came to eat them. And so they're kind of funny because they make their hair is like silk, so they weave it into like cloth, and they're quite cool. And then there's the La Hayata, or the Hayata for short, which are the flowers of Lahali, which was a character in one of my other books that figures into the mythology of the setting. And so you have all kinds of these scion races. Those are kind of the main ones that I just named. And there's other ones too, like if you read my books, there's the Okuro, which are these koala bear people that worship these trees. The tree is actually the hive mind. And so, because like everybody knows koala bears are like dumb as bricks. Their brains are so smooth that if you take leaves off of a branch, they don't recognize it as food, and they'll starve. And that's what I heard anyways. I don't know if it's real. I've never seen one. But the Oguro are similar in that the Vedris tree that they all live around, that each colony is based around, is actually the holder of their identities in their minds. And the tree will actually just switch. Like it's like, oh, I don't need that one's identity I don't like. I'm just going to take it out of them, and I'll put a different one inside. And it's like all based on the leaves that they're eating that are like a hallucinogenic / psychotropic. Then you have the Lemurians. They're the lemur people. I like lemurs. Like a lot of the books in the setting is like animals I like. Okay, I made it into a race. There you go. And then I have the Quiriri Reniri, and they're like this fox rabbit folk that's very conflicted. They're like part fox and part rabbit. So you have a herbivore and a carnivore, and so it's a very almost like Watership Down style xenofiction of these rabbit fox people in the weird world they live in. But then I have the Serid, that's the pigmen that everybody's familiar with any of the books that humans made them for, okay, well, anything you can do to a pig, you can do to the pigman. So, well, we can eat it. We can use it for war. We can use it for food. We can use it for organ transplants. And that's the Serid, right? And then there's the Myokin, that's the cat girls. And they're basically used for like labor and pets as well as, what. They mutate psionically. They develop psychic powers, while the pigmen develop kind of like physical ones. And then the Chayakovi are kind of just mutants in general. And then there's also, let me think, there's the Warvoy. Those are from the sci-fi books. They are the machine warriors that are also explorers. They don't... they're not slaves, though. Robot usually is for slave, and yeah, they are mechanical, but they're not a slave race. Then there's the Nimathi, and those ones are people that were infested with Herix technology, but they're brain resisted. And so the Herix are this iron kind of nanite from the end of time, so it's hyper iron. So hyper iron is like you take a ton of iron atoms and you just magnetize them into almost a singularity, and you can shoot that backwards through time. And now the thing is, when that was first being done, it was all well and good, but then of course when you do that, it creates ripples in space-time and it attracts things. And one of the things that attracted was the Herix. And this is kind of like when you detonate, let's say, a nuke. It generates a giant burst of light for a second here, but in superposition, it creates a giant blooming glow that the longer time goes on after you've detonated one, the more likely that things are going to be attracted to it when they look at your world. And so it's like leaving a porch light on, and the the lights, the porch lights on, and the bugs start swarming, and that's kind of what you can kind of expect is like you're actually doing that. And same with like the technology in my books is like, oh, okay, if you think, it was weird after we detonated the first nuke and all these aliens started showing up on Earth, and now we got to deal with elusive targets, and we've got, all the problems we're facing today. It's like, well, wait until you mess around with temporal engineering and you're suddenly fighting things that are attacking you in the past and altering your history, and you can't actually perceive that your history is being altered except by having vague inklings that life used to be a little different, but you can't put your finger on why. And so that's the thing with the Hrix, is the Hrix is made from this technology, and so unfortunately we were using it for long enough that it was like ringing a dinner bell for like an hour, not like once in a dark forest. And so that's them. Then you have the Philothi. This is a bio-droid that I talk about a lot in the books, because it was like, oh, well, technically slavery is illegal under the Viceroy, because in the books the Viceroy figure very heavily before the Ultima War. And even after, they're one of the main stable factions that are out there, just because of how powerful they were, that they were like, hold on, nobody's going to win in the Ultima War. Let's just seal our world. And so their world that they sealed was not a world, but it was basically the Laniakea supercluster. And so they're just like, yep, this is ours. Same with the other one that they took, and they're this very, very powerful civilization. But what they didn't perceive or plan for was the end of space, meaning the superpositional worlds that came into being. And so the Viceroy even struggled after the Ultima War. But anyways, the Philothi were humans were trying to get around the Viceroy, being like, no slavery. Slavery's bad. It's bad for the people that you're enslaving, and it's bad for you, because whenever you're going to engineer something to do something that you don't know how to do anymore, you have, you suddenly have a group of people that are running society, and you don't know how to run society. As well as, like, it's I use the example of, like, we selectively bred people when the slavery was happening to be good at certain things. Okay, you're good at lifting heavy stuff, and so you do that for generations. You're going to make like super warriors, and so the Philothi were like the answer to that. It's like, okay, we're going to make like just like kind of like very pleasant NPCs to run the shops of the world, and make them all very similar and all kind of oblivious that they are. And that's the idea with the Philothi, is kind of like, well, if we condition somebody and make them a bio-android, then it's not technically slavery because they like doing it, they think, right? So that's them. And then who else is there? What's another really important race? The Hrix, of course, like I said, these iron parasites. And you have the Rasps, and they are these blood-addicted undead, and they're about as pleasant and horrible as you could imagine because of that. Like, think about a rasp, just horrible blood-addicted corpses. And sorry, just changing screens. What else do we have that I wanted to mention? Did I mention the books? We talked about the core races. Oh, here we go. Then there's the caster folk. These are these like platypus people that are kind of like, they get mistaken for bird people. So they're linked into the bird men, the flying men category in the books, just as a joke, because it's like, because a duck is a duck unless it's a platypus, is an old saying in psychotherapy. Because people are like, oh, if it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's a duck. And it's like, well, sometimes it's a platypus. And so the example, I'll just share not a funny one, but so one of the things you'll see is somebody will display all the symptoms of dementia, and it'll actually be a urinary tract infection, and so unless, like, and I've had I don't know how many times I've seen this where somebody says, oh, so and so has this and we need to get them into a home, and I'm like, okay, well, have you checked them for urinary tract infection? Because when somebody gets older, if they get one of those, sometimes they go a bit funny. And well, it's not funny, but you know what it is. It looks like dementia. And so they do it, and they're like, oh, it was just a urinary tract infection, and we just cleared it up, and now they don't have any symptoms of dementia. And so that's where the phrase, if it quacks like a duck, lays eggs like a duck, and has a bill like a duck, or webbed feet, or whatever it is, like a duck, sometimes it's still platypus. And that was something I would say to some of my students. Anyways, then you have the Savori. These are these flying kind of crow ninjas that are like into stealing things. And they like to steal blue things. That's their currency, is blue stuff, because blue is like intoxicating, but they get kind of like blue blind. So when they look at the blue for a long time, it kind of like it loses its appeal, because they've seen that shape of blue for too long, and then they'll go get different blue things. And so I don't know if you've been around crows, but they love blue stuff. And then you have the Pastrigi, and these are small, kind of these owl parrots that are super smart, and they are actually psychic, and they mind control their host. And so the pirate is actually being mind controlled by the bird. And so it's like the pirate captain, it's like, no, it's actually just the bird that's making them steal all these crackers for some reason. And then I've got the Talk in the books, and these are these horrible dolphins are horrible animals. I thought dolphins were like remember, what was it, Lisa Frank, I think it was, that had the beautiful, colorful dolphins jumping around, everything's happy, and then it's like you find out how like just like murder junkie, murder hobo-ish dolphins are. I was like, that is metal. So in mind, the Talk are like these dolphin gym bros that live in icebergs, and they sink ships and then kill everybody with the ice. Like they basically chip an iceberg off the glacial front, sail it down to where people are, crash it into either land or against a ship, and just go into a horrible ultra-violence feeding frenzy. They're just horrible creatures. And they also never sleep. They have one half of their brain sleeps, then the other half. And they're just awful monsters. They're kind of like my orcs. Like if there's a race that's just irredeemably evil, kill them if you see them. They're horrifying. It's the Talk. And they're just awful. Then there's the Oyathi, which are this kind of like a squid people, and they once had a big empire, but then it got ruined by the Olgae, and so these ones were, the Olgae was, what happened was, or Olga is the singular, it's this algae that infested all of their people, and then they try to get rid of it. They're like, oh, we'll activate like this artifact we found, and it just boiled the sea with them in it. And so the Olga, this horrible algae, they became basically these algae infested corpses everywhere that attack their beautiful undersea cities. And the Oyathi, these squishy kind of squid girl, squid man people, they fight a losing battle against them. Then there's the Pyrangi, which are this mantis shrimp folk that can, punch holes through armor and stuff. They're like kind of like monks that live under the sea, and they ride on giant mobile crab armored fortresses. And they're like from the deep depths, and so they're slowly marshaling to take over the other seas, part of the ocean, and then the surface. And then the Oyathi are the ones that are like, oh, we already just lost all of our empire to this artifact that boiled our ocean and part of the ocean and our city, and turned all this algae into this bloom that's infesting everyone. And then the Talk are near the surface. That's kind of like you have the sunlight zone, and then you've got the abyssal and hadal depths, and then the midnight twilight zone depths. And so the Talk are in the sunlight, midnight and twilight are the Oyathi, and the Pyrangi are coming up from the abyssal and hadal depths. And then there's the mineral people. There's the Kaori, which are the mercury folk, and their blood is like this liquid metal, and they're from this land of fire and ice. It was like this tidally locked world, but then it broke when the sealed world got broken open, and they kind of they're like made of mercury, and they basically the world got, imagine your world is spinning on orbits, and then the seal gets broken and your world gets tossed against a wall of statues. And so their world just got completely just annihilated, smushed. And there's only like a few shards of it, like 4 kind of shards that are kind of remaining. Then there's the Ilkarot, where these are like mercury people. Unlike the mercury people, they're like a mineral and a mixture of metals that exist only in high heat. And they have like this silvery metalish skin, and they got a mercury for blood, and a sulfur chemostatic brain, and a finned head. They're they're very kind of secretive, and they live usually in like volcanoes and fumaroles. Then you have the Davari, which are my dwarves. The things my friends said, don't call these dwarves anymore. It's a fleshy tuber with like hair growing out of it, and it's like it's like an amber with hair. Like, you know how amber and wool, you rub it together, it generates electricity. The Davari, the electricity of their mind is generated by the static electricity of their body, and so they're from like the very, very end of the universe, deep and cold. You think of like, you know, the most cold, low energy places, the oldest parts of the universe, that you know, it's dark, cold, very little energy, and they kind of still generate and lope around in these dark, lightless realms. And then there is some plant people I have. You've got the Bethari, which are like juniper people, and for them, it's like they're all about like kind of like juniper slash like pine. So it's like they're like for war and fire and everything, it's all the same as like reproduction, and they sow their when they get kind of burnt, their hearts are like actually like a claymore mine, so they explode outward and lodge their seeds into people, and the seeds like kind of like it drinks their blood and kind of eats the flesh from the inside, and they use the bones as like a buttress sometimes while they're kind of developing until they imagine like just like gorilla warrior girls with spiky skin that scream like the mandragora, and they're just metal, horrible, really, really nasty customers. Then there's the Thratchite orchids, which is a hastrid. It's a parasitic plant, except it's decided to invest people, and it consumes your brain and keeps the brain in a kind of a psychic trance. And then there's the Zilid, which are like kind of like the soft deciduous kind of plants, the people. And then who else? I got the amphibian peoples. There's also the Ixalid, which are a ghost haunted molted salamander skin kind of, but it's they store their consciousness in pearls, and so you know you can break one of their bodies to pieces, but unless you break the pearl that their consciousness is stored in, they can just pop it into a new body, and they can print basically at their bodies because it's all just molts to them. And then there's the Boggans, which are these just horrible toad people, and they're just awful. And I can't even describe them without getting demonetized, but they reproduce by vomiting down each other's mouths or other people's mouths, and if you're not strong enough to digest all the frogs by the time they eat their way out of you, then obviously you are weaker and you shouldn't have been existing. So that's the Boggan. So everybody hates the Boggan, and the Boggan hate everybody. And then there's the Zanari, which they're very social. They love being around people, and they like being enslaved and conquered, because when they've been conquered, what they do is they shed their cells into like their scales are actually parasitic cones that generation after generation of being around them, they infest their conquerors to be kind of like them. So like imagine like tapeworms that would run, I don't know what kind of an outfit that would be called, but that's them. And then for the bug people, the Uthekans as they're called, there's the Batigi, which are like, imagine Hercules beetle, ladybug types that are kind of like aphid farmers that just like drinking aphid milk, having kids, getting drunk, eating leaves. They don't like to leave home. They're just kind of like, just leave me alone, get off my lawn. But they're super buff and they're only like yay big, but they're like a Hercules beetle. So they got like these like gnarly, like whatever's coming out of their foreheads. But they have like kind of like 4 stout legs coming out of the bottom. And like the other thing is like when I say it's always like a hybrid, like it's a hybrid. I don't just have like a big beetle walking. It's like they're a bit different. And I wish I had my stylus going, but I can't draw it for you. I should get my sketchbooks. Maybe I'll do a sketchbook tour of some of these critters another time. Then you got the Hrungur, which are these roach, cicada, termite people. They're pretty awful in terms of they basically they'll sleep for however long and then they wake up and they're hungry and they just go and eat and eat and eat and they don't stop. And then there's the Ixthalid, Ichthixid, and it's this mantis locust kind of scorpion type things, and they want to eat you because their god said so, and their god hid itself beyond, and basically they make their weapons from the limb. They can summon their god to pull out, have one of its limbs pass into reality, and they hack off like kind of like growths of it, and they use like claws of their horrible insect god to kill everything. So all their weapons are alive, just like the still twitching limbs of this bug god. And then you have the Patolkeen, which are these like giant, like the what are they called? Paracephalosaurians. They have the giant long head, and they've got big floppy dog ears and kind of a cone head. They breathe fire. They got psychic powers, and they're from like the far-flung past, and they left this disaster they saw coming with the psychic powers, but then they came back and their universe was changed, and they're like, oh, what do we do now? And then there's the Yugawari, which are like kind of like, imagine like an iguana and a Komodo dragon and like maybe I guess a turtle kind of all got together and shook their genes into a shaker. That's the Yugawari, and they're just like really the shock troopers of the Patolkeen, because they came back and like, oh, this is all messed up. We need somebody to fight for us because we're above fighting, and so they made them. And then there's the Zethid, which are the serpent folk that live they cannot abide the hot world. They live inside glaciers. 0 Kelvin is their freezing point, and they don't kind of like, they're like what? Like, you think 0 Kelvin is? No, that's just when like time freezes. Like zero. After that, that's just how when like time is kind of freezing. And so if you get it to negative, you can actually get negative vibration. You can move backwards, and so that's they're again like from this other parts of the universe that are weird. So that's a lot of the races and the world and some of the lore of it. There's also like a lot of like in my books, you've kind of gotten to hear about some of these different worlds, like Hindland is a big setting, and like this giant kind of trackless wilderness, and Zindrick, amongst other places. And those are part of the fantasy sealed world. When I write about the sci-fi world, it's mostly set within Yathkade Lake, because it's islands on lakes and islands on lakes, and maybe you saw a theme there. So that's kind of I just wanted to kind of do a lore ramble. It's been a while since I've uploaded anything, and I wanted to just kind of share some of that for you all. So thank you for tuning in, and y'all have a wonderful, wonderful time. And as always, I hope that you check out my new book that's coming out soon on Audible. It's going to be Autoslav, and it's been narrated by the very talented A.R. Markov. And so I do hope that you choose to check that out when it comes out in probably a few weeks. But anywho, be seeing you.